This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com with a daily wrestling news update for you. The ratings for last Friday's Rampage and Smackdown shows came in today because Monday was a holiday, Labor Day. Rampage, which featured appearances by Chris Jericho and CM Punk, among others, did a 0.3 rating in the 18 to 49 demo and 696,000 viewers. Smackdown did a 0.62 rating and averaged 2.22 million viewers. So you can already see a significant drop in the interest in CM Punk. It was only a few weeks ago that they were doing a lot better. And Mick Foley put out a video saying he believes WWE is in trouble as far as creating new stars. He is correct that they are not doing a good job creating new stars. The last new mainstream star that they created, I guess you could say Cena, because he is bigger than Lesnar overall, but Lesnar's pretty close. Those are the last two real stars they created. Roman Reigns would be the closest after that, and he is significantly lower than those two. But one thing people are not taking into account is one of the reasons Daniel Bryan probably went to AEW is they probably made him a better offer financially than what he was offered to stay in WWE. It is all about the money. It's been well documented that Fox actually wanted WWE to hire CM Punk. They were set against not hiring CM Punk. So that's probably the main reason he never returned to WWE. He can say what he wants, but the offer probably wasn't there that would make him come back. But one thing a lot of people aren't thinking about is at some point, the AEW wrestlers' contracts in the future are going to come up. And in some cases, WWE may offer them more to jump than AEW will offer them to stay. So when that happens, you're going to have a lot of interest in WWE to see these AEW guys potentially be used better in WWE. And there is going to be guys that are going to want to jump because a lot of them are not going to have the same positions now that all these guys that were popular in WWE from like 2009 to 2013 or 14 are being brought into AEW. They're taking spots in the upper part of the card that people that are there before are going to lose. So they might be inclined to jump to WWE. So the wrestlers jumping is actually going to help WWE in the future. And they just profited in one quarter like $25 million. And how many more surprises can AEW do? Obviously, Ric Flair at some point is going to come, but there's not really that many more stars. CM Punk was probably the last of the quote-unquote big wrestling stars that wasn't signed because of Goldberg and Lesnar are signed. John Cena is WWE for life. The Rock is WWE for life. I guess AEW could bring in Steve Austin for a last match. Who knows? Time will tell. Apparently, Vince Russo worked for WWE last week on a project for the Peacock Network. He was their most successful writer. That's one of the reasons why he has a lot of haters. You can't deny the fact that when he was writing Raws, their ratings were in the 8s. Not the 0.8s. They actually got a rating in the 8s. And he actually had TNA ratings in the 1s at one point. Now WWE would be celebrating getting in the 1s. Now, I'm not saying that everything he's done has been a success. He's had failures, but he does have some good ideas, and he's a lot more fitting to work for them. Not that he's going back beyond project here and there, than like, who was this woman that they hired a few months ago that didn't even know what wrestling was and was actually bragging on social media that she didn't even know anything about wrestling, and she'd been hired as a writer. That's one of WWE's problems. There's too many writers. You have guys like Kevin Sullivan sitting at home. He was working for this SWE company in Texas that's run by a bunch of scoundrels. Their lawyer recently dropped them in a case related to money and footage that they still owe me. And I actually found out that this company is actually legally out of business in Texas. So they're not even a legally operational company. They're about as carny as you get, folks. But world-class pro wrestling is making a comeback starting October the 3rd in Wichita. And it's my understanding that they're going to have monthly shows in the Dallas and Fort Worth area starting in January. And in December, they're also doing a Christmas Star Wars show at Southern Junction in Irving, Texas. Also in Texas wrestling, there's a lot going on. There's the Bruiser Brody Cup coming up November 5th and 6th, where you can see the Blood Hunter wrestle Shane Douglas. Kevin Nash is going to be there. Psycho Sid, Barbara Goodish, Bruiser Brody's widow, Money Incorporated, James Storm, Akeem, the Slickster, Demolition. It's going to be huge. And of course, the last event I'll plug is PCW Ultra coming up in October, which is going to be a big thing. And I'll slip in one more because it's happening very soon. The ECW Arena, September 18th. I'll just get into a couple of your questions. Someone checking in from Puerto Rico, where I am a former Intercontinental Champion in IWA and two-time WWE, WWC Puerto Rico Tag Team Champion. And the only reason I was not Tag Team Champion for longer is because I had too many pay issues. I had to leave. Fart Doctor, I just talked about that. And as I said, WWE will be able to hire some of these stars that AEW is creating when their contracts expire. But if you look at the ratings for Rampage and Smackdown, Smackdown is still head and shoulders above Rampage. And Patrick mentions CM Punk looks old. I mean, this guy got his ass kicked in MMA. Like, he showed horrible skill. How can anyone take him seriously but the smart marks? To average fans or to like people like me, we just look at him as a fucking loser. I'm glad that you guys like him. I'm glad that he's been successful making people believe he's stuff, but he's pathetic as far as an actual tough guy. I can't take him serious. Doug Masters wants to appear on the Hannibal TV in an interview. Will very possibly happen soon. Hello, Barbara Ridge. 718. WWE is slowly becoming WCW. I don't find WWE entertaining at all. I really don't. So I'm not a pro WWE guy. I'm just trying to be realistic here. The WWE isn't going anywhere. Their product might be bad, but they have so many revenue streams coming in and so much old footage they can weather the storm. And once, as I said, they can pick guys out of AEW down the road should they choose, or they can sell their company. Mike, does PCW Ultra miss having Tessa Blanchard, women's champion? Well, I certainly miss that because there's a bunch of PCW Ultra matches on this channel featuring Tessa Blanchard that all have great hits. But I did have the owner of PCW Ultra on this channel for an interview a couple of weeks ago, Joseph Samael, as he is known in MLW. And he did say he's open to having her back in the future. Someone brings up, what if a real life job started paying their former employees more money to stay? Yeah, it wouldn't happen. Rarely would happen. Fart Doctor Drew McIntyre will never be a huge star. Drew McIntyre's finish, whatever that stupid slap, like he's so blatantly slapping his thigh. I've done Taekwondo. I've done kickboxing. I've done MMA training. I've been in street fights. I've bounced for over a decade, almost 2 decades. And I've never seen people in real fights slap their thighs. I cannot stand it. And yeah, I do see it. Even in Great North Wrestling, I saw it. And I do pay attention to that kind of stuff when I'm thinking about who I'm going to book on future events. I am very proud of our women's division. And in a couple hours, I'll have the matchup of Nova against Shiloh to crown the new Great North Wrestling Women's Championship, Women's Champion of Canada. And I really have big plans for the future for the women's division in Great North Wrestling, particularly once the border opens. And yeah, we're still under terrible COVID restrictions here, but hopefully things will open up more as time goes on. Trevor C says wrestling is a niche market, not mainstream. Well, I don't know how old you are, but in the 90s, the late 90s, when I was in high school, it was pretty mainstream. And in the 80s, it was also mainstream. You could go into a mall in the 90s, and a huge amount of people would be wearing wrestling shirts. And the cool kids in school would wear wrestling shirts and talk wrestling. Now, I was also around during periods of time where you could get beat up for being a wrestling fan or made fun of. Trust me, I went through that through various periods of my life when I was growing up as a super wrestling fan as a kid. It could be mainstream. Again, it's just a matter of finding that star like the Hulk Hogan's or the Rocks and the Austin that can transcend wrestling and become bigger than wrestling and make wrestling cool. That's what it's all about. UFC even now, it needs the next Conor McGregor. It does not have like the next big star that is going to bring in more fans. And if you listen to my Wrestling Observer review every week, wrestling kills MMA in the ratings. If it's a big fight, of course, MMA will still win in the pay-per-view buys, but in the TV ratings, wrestling destroys it. Wendell, thoughts on WWE not using Davey Boy Smith? Well, supposedly he's been under contract since April. Davey Boy Smith Jr., former Great North Wrestling Canadian champion, who the Blood Hunter defeated earlier this year in Carthage, Texas, to win that title. And he's been in WWE since April, and they've given him a dark match and an online interview So yeah, let's hope that they do more with him than that. That's sad. But you hear them talking about wanting to go back to bigger guys. Davey Boy Smith Jr. is like 6'4" or 6'5", 280 pounds. And he's a great wrestler. I've said it a million times. As far as a technical wrestler, he's the best in the game, in my opinion. Because he doesn't just do the fake chain wrestling crap, which I don't find entertaining at all because it's fake. You don't see that happen in MMA, exchange of holds and all this, like, so back and forth. So a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that these chain wrestling guys actually know how to grapple, where in a lot of cases they don't. But in Harry's case, he could actually grapple. That's why I don't mind watching him technical wrestle, because he knows how to apply those holds to inflict pain if he wants. Pulsar Light brings up that Ed Strangler Lewis was mainstream. So is Gorgeous George, of course. Cool says AEW can have wrestling if that's what they were presenting. Well, it's what your definition of wrestling is. I don't find the males kissing males and stuff, I don't call that wrestling. And yeah, I'm sorry. I don't find that entertaining. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just I don't watch wrestling to see that kind of stuff, to see Adam Cole's debut getting kissed by two guys. That's just change the channel. Like that's nothing. That's not wrestling to me. Wrestling is Ric Flair and Macho Man at WrestleMania 8. That is wrestling. Macho Man and Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. Those were battles. The Rock and Hulk Hogan. Like, that to me is wrestling. The Road Warriors going in and demolishing people. People being scared of the Sheik. That to me is wrestling, not the leg slapping stuff and all the goofy comedy stuff. I know it has an audience, but for the people that's someone actually tweeted to me the other day, you don't find AEW fun. What's wrong with you? It's like, well, you know what? Look how many people watch Rampage, less than 1 million, 600 and something thousand. So it's not just me that doesn't like the comedy stuff and the gymnastics stuff and the leg slapping stuff. There's a lot of us that don't, and there's a lot of people that just don't care about wrestling and don't find wrestling entertaining at all. So maybe there's not something wrong with me just because I don't find that entertaining. A lot of people don't. But I don't harass people that do find it entertaining. If you find that entertaining, more power to you. I'm just being blunt. There's very little wrestling I find entertaining these days. What I like the most is the girls. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I am the Blood Hunter's biggest fan because he is violent and vicious and destructive. So that's the kind of wrestling I like. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on Patreon.